From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NOCO, a daily slice of Northern Colorado news and happenings. It's Wednesday, March 20th. I'm Erin O'Toole. Prisons in Colorado are severely understaffed, and that's hitting workers especially hard. But the effects of this shortage stretch far beyond the staff.
You have not only the stress on the staff from the vacancy, you have the disruption of normal functionality for the department as a whole. And then, of course, then this incredible negative impact on the people who are incarcerated.
Christie Donner leads the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition, which wants to see more money invested in community initiatives and less spent on the prison system itself. Donner and her colleagues recently released a report surveying hundreds of incarcerated Coloradans about their living conditions amid this staffing shortage. I began by asking her what incarcerated people said about their experience.
It's really at every level. The prisons themselves feel less safe. There's more drug use. And so that just as an overall environment feels more dangerous for them. But then they also reported a lack of access to programs, particularly clinical care, because that's where the staff vacancies are the highest. So for medical care and behavioral health treatment, which of course this population has very high needs for both. And so not being able to access even education programs because there's a lot of vacancies in teachers, or teachers are getting pulled off their posts to work security. So program disruption. So it's a lot of idle time, people feeling not very productive, drug use is up, more challenges staying connected with their families. You know, you'll have visitation that's canceled because they don't have the staff for it, or there'll be long lines at the phones. And because there's not enough staff, it just everything sort of degrades. And then the department on top of that is also increasing the use of lockdowns as a way of managing the population. So if they're understaffed, they'll just lock people down in a unit and they'll be in their cells for hours and hours at a time when they didn't do anything wrong. This isn't a disciplinary thing. It's just a function of the lack of staff.
Wow. Well, I think this clearly highlights the dire need for something to be done. You know, in the state legislature, the Joint Budget Committee has been reviewing the Department of Corrections budget. Earlier this month, it approved for clinical staff $15,000 hiring bonuses and $5,000 bonuses after 6 and 12 months. Christie, is that enough? Or what would you like to see come out of these budget hearings?
Well, the other thing that the Joint Budget Committee approved was 300 more beds for the Department of Corrections. And it's almost $100 million increase over last year, which was a $100 million increase over the year before. So the investment going into corrections right now is some of the year over year increases are some of the biggest that I've seen. So the question is incentives. That's what a lot of the strategy has been. How do you incentivize? So these bonuses and things like that. I don't know if it, God bless them. I hope it works. But I have, concerns that the workforce isn't there. The entire state of Colorado has a behavioral health crisis. The entire state of Colorado has a nursing shortage. So I don't know where you make these people up. I'm not sure where they come from. So if it's a matter that the salaries aren't competitive, that's one thing. So, increasing salary and incentives may help. But if the issue, and I think that may partly be true, but the other bigger factor is the workforce isn't there. And so maybe there's opportunities with telehealth, but every state is trying to do this too. It's like you have mental health centers that are trying to do this, and not everyone wants to work for the Department of Corrections. And so there are some additional barriers, particularly in some of the outer lying facilities. So they have a lot of challenges, and we have had a chronic staffing shortage in clinical care for many years. So maybe leaning into it will make a difference, and maybe it won't, but I don't think it's going to bridge the gap in terms of what's needed regardless.
Right. We're talking about funding Colorado's correctional system. But I realized the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition pushes for reinvestment from the prison budget to community-based treatment and reentry services. Could you briefly talk about what that looks like?
Sure. So, our perspective is that, we've overused the criminal legal system, including corrections, but it's not to say that there aren't struggles in community. Crime is real, addiction is real. these are real problems that communities face that the criminal legal system actually has very little impact over. We use those terms public safety and the criminal justice system as synonymous, and they're not. Most crime never comes to the attention of law enforcement. So that whole mechanism doesn't even sort of get triggered and mobilized. And so the concept is we need to be reinvesting some of these public safety dollars into community-led safety efforts. We've worked on 4 different initiatives at the Capitol over the years. So whether that's to improve victim services for underserved victims, reentry, we have a crime prevention initiative. Again, the idea is community is actually the first responders in many, many situations. And I think we think of, law enforcement are the first responders. No, community is actually first responders. And so let's resource them as part of the public safety continuum to be working in their own communities, addressing their own challenges with their own solutions, and seeing if we can't improve public safety with their participation, because that's where we think you get more bang for the buck, is on upstream and community-led efforts. Otherwise, we're going to just continue to grow the Department of Corrections. They don't solve problems. People aren't better, right, when they come out of prison. And so they face a lot of barriers, as you know, employment and housing and all of those things. A lot of them still have substance abuse challenges, right? So what is the return on investment from, it's going to be about $1.2 billion in the Department of Corrections budget this year. We sort of crossed that $1 billion Rubicon last year. And so we're saying we've got to do something different.
Let's stay on this notion for a moment, if we could. How do you see less investment in prisons changing Colorado and society more broadly?
Well, it depends on what you invest in otherwise, right? And so our mantra out over here is really like, well, what do we want to reduce or dismantle? And that's the overuse for us, the overuse of the criminal legal system and the overuse of corrections in particular. But where are we going to make investments in public safety? And so it's both. And I think that many states, and I think a growing part of the American population is also questioning, is this the best use of our resources? Can we be doing something different? And so I think that it also offers a roadmap for what a new public safety sort of vision looks like, right? And it looks different than what we've done over the last 50 years, right? And so that's what we're hoping we're a part of, is helping to demonstrate that there are better ways of investing public resources that will actually improve public safety, because what we're doing right now is really moving deck chairs on the Titanic.
Christie Donner is with the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition. Christie, thank you so much for talking with me about this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You'll find a link to the report we discussed today in our show notes and at kunc.org. And if you have thoughts about the staffing crisis in Colorado correctional facilities, or you know someone who's been affected, we'd love to hear from you. We invite you to text us or leave a voicemail at 970-614-5323 or email us at noco@kunc.org. And that's it for us today here on In the NOCO. Our producer is Ariel Lavery. Robin Vincent is our executive producer. I'm your host, Erin O'Toole. We'll talk soon.